Hey everyone, this is Walter, and I'm back here with something I promised. I recently made a video about Elliot Rodger's most shameful moments, and believe me, there are more than enough for another video. I'll link to part 1 in the description, but last time we covered Elliot trying to convince his mom to marry a rich man, Elliot listening to his sister having sex with her boyfriend, Elliot making an ass of himself at parties, and Elliot crying for a week straight on a trip to Morocco. So we're off to a good start. Let's begin with Elliot Rodger's most shameful moments part 2. So we're going to start this off with one of his best known moments, the party he tried to go to as a last resort so he wouldn't have to carry out his day of retribution. This happened a few days before he turned 22, the oldest age he would ever reach. And this went even worse than the parties I've already read to you somehow. Let's check it out. I was too nervous to go out there sober, so I bought a bottle of vodka and took a few shots to garner enough courage to walk out at such an hour. I had taken one too many, for by the time I reached Del Playa Street, my head was clouded with drunkenness. At the start, it benefited me greatly. I saw lots of good-looking popular kids socializing in groups all over the place, and if I wasn't drunk, it would have intimidated me too much. I was so drunk that I walked right into a wild house party that was taking place on Del Playa. They had a DJ playing annoying hip-hop music that all the young people liked these days. And there was a ping pong table set up where lots of popular kids were playing beer pong, a crude drinking game. It's amazing that even when he's drunk, he doesn't find any of this college stuff fun. He pretty much just hates everyone there at the party and won't be happy until girls are talking to him. There were about 100 people at that party, and everyone was socializing with a group of friends except for me. I walked around in my drunken confidence for a few moments, helped myself to the beer they had, and tried to act like a normal partygoer. I soon became frustrated that no one was paying any attention to me, particularly the girls. I saw girls talking to other guys that looked like obnoxious slobs, but none of them showed any interest in me. As my frustration grew, so did my anger. I came across this Asian guy who was talking to a white girl. The sight of that filled me with rage. I always felt as if white girls thought less of me because I was half Asian, but then I see this white girl at the party talking to a full-blooded Asian. I never had that kind of attention from a white girl, and white girls are the only girls I'm attracted to, especially the blondes. How could an ugly Asian attract the attention of a white girl while a beautiful Eurasian like myself never had any attention from them? I thought with rage. I glared at them for a bit and then decided I had been insulted enough. He had been insulted enough. This is ridiculous. As usual, no one did anything to him except for not paying attention to him. Which is what you usually do with random people you don't know at parties when they don't talk to you. Personally, I've always wanted to see this next part actually play out. I bet wasted Elliot trying to push someone around was hilarious to behold. I angrily walked toward them and bumped the Asian guy aside, trying to act cocky and arrogant to both the boy and the girl. My drunken state got the better of me, and I almost fell to the floor after a few minutes of this. They said something along the lines that I was very drunk and that I needed to get some water, so I angrily left them and went out to the front yard where the main partying happened. Rage fumed inside me as I realized that I just walked away from that confrontation, so I rushed back into the house and spitefully insulted the Asian before walking outside again. I also want to know what he said to this guy. Was he just like yelling this racist shit, as everyone could see that he's Asian too? Probably. I stood awkwardly in the front yard for a bit, realizing how pathetic I looked all by myself when everyone was partying around me. To calm down, I climbed up onto a wooden ledge that bordered the street and plunged down on one of the chairs there. Isla Vista was at its wildest state at that time, and I saw lots of guys walking around with hot blonde girls on their arm. It fueled me with rage as it always had. I should be one of those guys, but no blonde girls gave me that chance. I looked down at all of them, and in my drunken carelessness extended my arm out and pretended to shoot them all, laughing giddily as I did it. Eventually, some partiers climbed up onto the ledge. They were all obnoxious, rowdy boys whom I've always despised. A couple of pretty girls came up and talked to them, but not to me. They all started socializing right next to me, and none of the girls paid any attention to me. I rose from my chair and tried to act arrogant and cocky toward them, throwing insults at everyone. They only laughed at me and started insulting me back. That was the last straw. I had taken enough insults that night. You can tell this is not going anywhere good. If you're wondering why he's not talking to anyone, he was very shy and struggled with his autism. Let's listen to his friend Philip, who was interviewed after the day of retribution. Everyone is focusing on Elliot's lack of success with women, but they need to appreciate he was unable to communicate with anyone. I remember he once said to me, "I saw this really attractive girl today, and she didn't even come up to me. She ignored me. I asked him if he tried talking to her, and he said no." Well, anyway, let's continue with him getting angry on the ledge. A dark, hate-fueled rage overcame my entire being, and I tried to push as many of them as I could from the 10-foot ledge. My main target was the girls. I wanted to punish them for talking to the obnoxious boys instead of me. It was one of the most foolish and rash things I ever did, and I almost risked everything in doing it, but I was so drunk with rage that I didn't care. I failed to push any of them from the ledge, and the boys started to push me, which resulted in me being the one to fall onto the street. When I landed, I felt a snap in my ankle, followed by a stinging pain. I slowly got up and found that I couldn't even walk. I had to stumble, and stumble I did. I tried to get away from there as fast as I could. Yeah, so Elliot goes after the girls physically at this point. It's only a 10-foot drop, but that could still kill someone with bad luck. Elliot was so drunk he didn't stick the landing and broke his leg in what I can only call karma. So already a pretty shameful showing at this party. He's not done yet, though. As I stumbled a few yards down Del Playa with my shattered leg, I realized that someone had stolen my Gucci sunglasses that my mother had given me. I loved those sunglasses and had to get them back. I vehemently turned around and staggered back towards the party. At that point, I was so drunk that I forgot where the party was and ended up walking onto the front yard of the house next to it, demanding to know who took my sunglasses. The people in this house must have been friends with the ones I previously fought with, for they greeted me with vicious hostility. They called me names like and pussy, typical things those types of scumbags would say. I like how Elliot is just going around being casually racist, but oh, don't call him a pussy, that would make you a scumbag. I'm also willing to bet these people had no idea who he was, and he was just being abrasive enough to piss them off. A whole group of the obnoxious brutes came up and dragged me onto their driveway, pushing and hitting me. I wanted to fight and kill them all. I managed to throw one punch toward the main attacker, but that only caused them to beat me even more. I fell to the ground where they started kicking me and punching me in the face. Eventually, some other people from the street broke up the fight. I managed to have the strength to stand up and stagger away. It was the first time in my life that I had been truly beaten up physically to the point where my face was bruised up. I had suffered a lot of bullying in my life, but most of it wasn't physical. I had never been beaten and humiliated that badly. Everyone in Isla Vista saw what happened, and it was truly horrific. The worst part of this whole ordeal was not getting beaten up. Oh no. It was the fact that no one showed any concern. There was only one group who helped me to the end of Del Playa, but after that they abandoned me. Not one girl offered to help me as I stumbled home with a broken leg, beaten and bloody. God, there's no real excuse for any of this. It is completely beyond me how he can go from trying to injure girls by pushing them off a ledge, a pretty bold action, to wondering why no girls want to help him hobble home. I mean, would you really want to be seen with Elliot after this whole mess? If you recall, he had a tendency to take minor events very seriously, so imagine how he felt after a pretty major event like this one. If girls had been attracted to me, they would have offered to walk me to my room and take care of me. They would have even offered to sleep with me to make me feel better. But no, not one girl showed an ounce of concern for me. They didn't care. No one cared about me. I was all alone. As I got to my room, I was so traumatized that I called the only people in the world I knew, my parents and my sister. Yes, I even called my sister, someone I never got along with. I sulked for a long time, and then I reached up to my neck to feel my special golden necklace, and I felt nothing there. In the midst of the fight, one of those horrible punks had snatched off my special golden necklace that my grandma Amma had given me. That necklace was one of the most special items I had, and now one of those evil, wretched thugs will be selling it to buy drugs. I broke down in anguish and wailed in agony, crying and crying until I passed out in my bed all alone. I have gotta feel like nobody was going to sleep with anyone who had this exact night. I mean, he's all beat up and still just cannot get girls off his mind. Well, let's check out the aftermath. The physician at the hospital put me in a temporary cast and gave me crutches. On top of all other things in the world that made me feel inferior, I was now a cripple. I felt so defeated and broken. To my horror, the physician said I would have to be in crutches for the next 6 weeks and I might have to get surgery. The leg that broke was my left leg, so I was still able to drive. Shortly after the incident, I drove home to spend the rest of the summer recovering. It was a depressing drive. I had never felt so defeated and wronged in my life. I had actually gone out to a party in Isla Vista, hoping that I would be walking back to my room in triumph with a beautiful girl in my arm. But instead I stumbled back to my room with a shattered leg and shattered hopes. My 22nd birthday was a miserable experience. I sat around at my mother's house, staring at my broken leg, feeling so pathetic for being a cripple as well as a 22-year-old virgin. My mother bought me a new golden necklace to replace the one that was stolen from me, as she knew how heartbroken I was about losing it. 22 years old. The highly unjust experience of being beaten and humiliated in front of everyone in Isla Vista, and their subsequent lack of concern for my well-being was the last and final straw. I actually gave them all one last chance to accept me, to give me a reason not to hate them, and they devastatingly blew it back in my face. I gave the world too many chances. It was time for retribution. I am so confused about how he can blame anyone for how that party went but himself. Putting the Asian guy aside for now, he started shit on the ledge by insulting everyone first, and then when they insulted him back, he got pissed and started pushing people, and only then did he get pushed back. I don't condone those dudes ganging up on him really, but what are the chances he wasn't calling them evil low-class thugs like he keeps doing in this essay? No one likes it when some random drunk stumbles into their yard and yells at them about stealing sunglasses. It's crazy how the first time he tried to interact with girls, really the entire party was insulting them and then physically assaulting them. Make sure to let me know what you think about this party and his behavior. It was definitely alarming. But that is about all the time I have for you today. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you have something to say, yeah, make sure to let me hear it. Elliot is a subject that pretty much everyone has something to say about. If you're new here and want more of this type of content, consider subscribing. I might be covering people more often instead of just Reddit stories. We'll have to see how it goes. Also, big thanks to my patrons who support me more directly. It's very much appreciated. Okay, so I think I can make this a 3-part series when I get to it. Someone mentioned his Powerball saga, and I'd also like to cover the disaster that was him trying to get along with most of his roommates. But yeah, that's about all I have. Have a great day, everyone, and if you go to any parties, make sure you have a better time than Elliot set out to. Him talking about the annoying hip-hop music that young people like these days must have truly been born into the wrong time period.